Welcome, Badass Manifester. I am so glad you are here. I'm your host and head coach, Ashley Gordon, master mindset and manifestation biz expert, founder of the quantum coaching certification, and multiple six-figure entrepreneur obsessed with empowering you to create quantum leaps in your energy, your life, and your business. This is the show to help you make magic your everyday normal, where the ripple effect is real and the guest experts are world class. My mission is to power your conscious and subconscious mind with manifestation teachings, business tools, and coaching techniques to put your potential into action. Consider this your weekly up level. Are you ready for quantum transformation? Let's do this. Welcome back, Badass Manifester. I am so excited that you're here. We just came off an amazing wellness series to help you activate your manifestations through really becoming your most vital self. And now we're on to the next series, which is called the Self-Mastery series. And in this Self-Mastery series, I am introducing a few different modalities and experts that have drastically changed my life and the way that I use these different modalities to help me deepen within myself, to help me deepen my self-awareness, my self-mastery, to help me master the game of life even more, to help me know myself in every single aspect. And that's really what I want to help you with. And I feel like that's why you listen to this podcast, because we're all about self-mastery, right? Mastering our lives, mastering our energy, mastering our belief systems. And so the guest trainers that I have coming in to help you do that are bringing you very specific expertise in very specific self-mastery modalities. And on this journey, we have world famous experts coming in to share their wealth of knowledge on these different topics. And so now I'm going to share with you what these topics are. We have numerology, which has radically just changed my life. We have intuition, deepening your intuition. We have human design, how to really access your potential through mastering your human design. And we have feng shui, a feng shui expert to help you really maximize your space, maximize your energy, maximize the abundance that's flowing through your home. And we don't just have any teachers teaching or being interviewed on these topics. I have like world-class industry leaders, like people that I'm so honored to interview on the podcast. So I am so freaking excited. If you're coming into this series and you are in the middle of it and you have a couple episodes to catch up on, maybe you missed the numerology episode, like go back and listen to it and catch up, binge these episodes because they are that juicy and that good. Before I introduce our expert, I want to tell you about something that I have been keeping under wraps, and it's finally out in the open. I am hosting a live event experience. I am hosting a live event like I've never hosted before. It's called the Quantum Expansion Experience, and it's going to be hosted in the beautiful Sedona, Arizona this September 13th to the 16th. And this event is for the person who is ready to step into their power to amplify their influence and expand their impact through deep embodiment work. We are going to be going super deep. This is a visionary 3-day experience that is all about self-discovery and empowerment to help you expand your visibility in your message, your vision, and your self-expression in the world. This is for the person who's ready to stop dimming their light and stop giving a fuck about what other people think so that you can actually do the work that you came here to do, to get out of your own way once and for all. We're doing strategic embodiment work, how to elevate your presence, hone your message through these embodiment practices and dynamic work. You're going to deep dive into your authentic essence, allowing you to radiate confidence and clarity in all that you present to the world, helping you amplify your voice to expand your visibility and influence by mastering the art of communication through your charisma, your body language, and really captivating your audience and leaving a lasting impression. This is about divine feminine leadership, right? Really embracing and cultivating a bold and authentic presence in the world, exploring the nuances of feminine energy and expression, and unlocking new levels of influence within yourself. We're going to be in nature. We're going to have movement. Oh my gosh, it's going to be truly something like you've never experienced before. And spots are very limited. So if this is calling to you, I want you to just DM me on Instagram at thequantum.coach, expand, and I will send you all of the information. And there's a link in the show notes below. It's first come, first serve. I know the right people will be joining us, so there's no application necessary for this. It's really just whoever feels the call to grab their spot and join us. And basically what will happen is once you step into it, you'll be put into a community online where you will be able to connect with other people going to the retreat and stay together, and share Airbnbs together and like really share in this collective beautiful experience together. The experience is being hosted at the Shine Center in Sedona. So we have like a designated space that we will be hosting the live event at. And that will be our sacred space to meet at every single day where all of the event will take place. And of course, you'll have your own downtime. You'll have time to explore Sedona. And we have a massive Q&A section on the page to answer all of your travel questions, all the things that you're going to want to know about how to prepare for this experience. And of course, once you opt into the experience and invest in it, you will be, like I said, added to a community where we'll be able to really deep dive and prepare you. And we are possibly thinking about having a retreat call before we actually go on retreat so everyone can connect that way as well. So I am beyond excited for this event. It's going to be so incredibly magical, so incredibly transformational. And if you've wanted to work together in any capacity, this is such an amazing way to do so. And you deserve this experience. You deserve to, come and join us. And this is for coaches, this is for people that have businesses, and this is for someone who also just wants to really deepen in their embodiment and who they are and how they show up in the world. And I am inviting you to this event. So please join us. Again, DM me the word expand. I'll send you all the details. We have early bird pricing for a short amount of time, so please get in on this. Again, spots are very limited. I can't wait for you to listen to this episode that I recorded with the Erin Claire Jones. I'm so honored. She is like the celebrity of all celebrities in the human design realm. And we happen to be in the same mastermind, and we just bonded so fast and became fast friends. And she's just absolutely an incredible human, has so many talents, so many gifts, and she has the gift of teaching human design in a way that is actually changing the world. And she's going to share about her journey of how she got into human design and all about it. If you're brand new to human design and you've never heard of human design before, this is for you. Like, stay tuned. Be open to this because human design is so radically transformational. It will help you learn about yourself in a way that you've never known, but also I think it brings a lot of understanding and self-acceptance, and it's a huge permission slip for so many people. So that's why this episode is called Permission to Be Yourself, Human Design with Erin Claire Jones, because she is absolutely amazing at teaching it and breaking it down and helping you understand every single part of this. And what I want to say is that she makes it really accessible because one of the things that she offers to the world is her human design blueprint. And this human design blueprint is unique to you. So when you click the link in the show notes and get your blueprint, I think it's $99, you will be generated a very personalized blueprint that tells you more than you could even imagine about the way that you work as a human on this planet. I am obsessed with my blueprint. I love it. I refer to it so often, and I think every single person needs to have one because why are we here if we're not here always trying to understand ourselves, deepen within ourselves, and also share our gifts with the world? Because human design helps you access more of who you are, access your gifts, shine your light, and really step into all that you are, your true authentic self. It is so powerful. So make sure you get your blueprint, and through the episode, I'll be talking about it and you'll learn more about exactly what it is. But I can't wait for you to meet Erin. A little bit about her. She has been featured in Forbes. She has been featured in mindbodygreen, Well+Good. She has worked with some of the top people in our industry. She has shared her words and her work on over 260 podcasts, such as Almost 30, Mark Groves, That's So Retrograde, Higher Self, Chatty Broads, Manifestation Babe. I mean, everywhere. And she is like the most highly sought after human design teacher and coach because she makes human design pragmatic, tangible, accessible, and immediately applicable to everyday life, which is exactly why I wanted to bring her on. We've never talked about human design on the podcast, and helping you really understand what it is. And just a little preview because she's going to go over it, but human design is a synthesis. It's a synthesis of ancient wisdom and modern science that sheds light on a person's energetic makeup, as well as specific tools they can use to live their happiest, healthiest, highest potential. It doesn't change who you are, it teaches you how to become more of who you are. It offers insight into what's possible, and it's just so freaking magical. I can't wait for you to just be in Erin's energy. So without further ado, enjoy this amazing episode on human design with the Erin Claire Jones. Hi, Erin.
Hi.
Okay, this is super cool because I mean, I'm just gonna brag for a minute. Like Erin and I are like, we're tight. Like we're close. We're friends.
Yes, we are.
We are. We have babies that are the same age and they're so cute. Erin is
Cute.
pregnant. You're pregnant now. How pregnant are you?
I am 23 weeks as of yesterday. Is that crazy? I know.
Wow. So Erin and I are in a CEO Mama Mastermind together, and that's where we met. And it's funny because like you're kind of like a celebrity, and I literally didn't know who you were before we met in the mastermind. Isn't that so wild?
I don't think it's super wild because I think I maybe am a celebrity in like a very niche community. So like it's not unsurprising that you would not know who I was.
But I was just immediately drawn to you, like immediately drawn to you, and just like wanted to be next to you, wanted to talk to you. And I'm just so grateful that you're in my life.
Me too. I feel like we've been such great cheerleaders for each other, and it makes me so
Yes.
happy.
Yeah, we really have. Because for those of you who don't know Erin, she is a human design expert, as you heard in the intro, and she is kind of revolution. You have really like revolutionized, I feel like, and elevated and made human design so accessible to people that it kind of blows my mind what you've created. I mean, you've created $1 million business off of what, $100 product?
95.
Excuse me, a $95 product. Like,
I mean, same. Yeah.
it's unbelievable what you've done. And like looking back on your journey of where you started, and I know your story of where you started, and
Yeah,
you were consulting for startups, right?
I was. Yeah.
And you were at a party.
Oh, I did tell you the story?
You did tell me the story last time we were together. And like
Uh,
when we went to dinner, I asked him,
yeah.
he's like, I want to talk about this on the interview. And someone like a complete stranger started reading your human design,
Yeah,
right?
correct.
Okay, so before we get into that story, what is your definition of human design?
Okay, so human design is a system based on your time, date, and place of birth that reveals your energetic blueprint and how you're wired to thrive, whether it's in relationships, career, life, parenting, all of it. I think we so often feel like we should be doing things a certain way, whether it's how we build our business or whether it's how we parent or whether it's how we show up in relationship. And human design reminds us there's a very unique roadmap for each of us. And we can fight against it all we want, but often the more we integrate it into our lives, the more flow we find. And it is so hyper specific. I love this about human design. It's not just like there are 5 types and that's it. Like it just gets so like nuanced and so granular that like no two human designs are the same.
Mhm.
We all kind of have our own blueprint, and learning it can make our lives so much easier.
It's funny because when I first heard of human design, I'm like, oh, it's just another one of these things,
Totally.
I'll try it, but I'm not going to buy into it. And I was absolutely shook at how accurate it was.
Yeah. Oh, it's crazy. It's like I find the most skeptical people tend to love it the most because they walk in being like,
Yeah.
Erin, this is so woo-woo. I don't want to believe it. And then they're just like, the only way you could have known this is if you were like following me around, for my
Right.
entire life. Otherwise, like, how would you know? But one thing I'll just say, because I work with so many people that are skeptical is I think what matters most to me is not whether it's true, but whether it's useful. And I think my
Ooh.
experience in sitting with people is that like it's just incredibly useful, because it's so practical and gives us so many tools we can actually integrate into our lives.
Oh, I'm so excited because we've never talked about human design on the podcast. So there's some
Oh,
people in here that probably have never heard of human design, or they've heard of it, but they haven't gotten, their feet
yeah.
wet. And there's some people that maybe have pulled their chart before. And I find that for me, I pulled my chart in the past, but I never understood any of it. And I'm like, I wish there was a way where it wasn't like, oh, if you pay this much, you unlock this. And if you pay this, you unlock this. And I'm like, somebody just fucking tell me my
What's going on?
entire, yeah,
Yeah.
tell me everything. And that's really what you've done and what you've
Yeah.
created is this amazing blueprint. I love mine so much that
Mm.
explains just your entire design.
Yeah.
Um, it's really powerful. So take us back to when you first got introduced to human design, and had you ever heard of it at that point?
Never.
Okay.
I was primed in that like I was definitely open to things like this. I was not walking in like I'm a total skeptic. I like
Right.
loved all kinds of modalities and systems,
Sure.
but I was, like you said, I was in New York City in 2015 and went to a friend's gathering on the Lower East Side and sat next to a stranger who was twice my age. And he was like, I would love to read your human design chart. And I had never heard of it, nor had anyone I knew. It was
Mhm.
like, it was
Yeah.
not in the mainstream. It was not cool.
No.
Like, just people didn't know about it. And he gave me the most accurate, insightful reading I'd ever received. But it was also incredibly confronting. I felt like he put words to my experience in a way that nobody ever had. And he also was like, the way that you're operating is so out of alignment with this. And so I felt very like called forward. I was like, okay, I feel so seen. And also like, wow, I have been ignoring this for so long. And he actually ended that conversation by saying, Erin, I think you're meant to do this. I think like we're meant to do it together. And I just want to say that human design is not predictive. He was not like
Right. I
reading.
was wondering that part of
No.
the story. Like, how did that must have been an intuitive hit that he got.
It was like his design was so much more driven by his gut. And so he really had a gut feeling. And also, what he observed in our designs was so much compatibility and so much similarity, but also a lot of really like rich difference. And he also, what he looked at in my design was that like I had a gift in my design for making mystical, complex things really simple and really easy to understand. And so, like, I could apply that obviously to so many different things, but he was just like saw that application so quickly. And my design, my human design is all about being invited into things and feeling seen. And so, like, it was such an interesting beginning because he was like, you would be amazing at this. Will you do this with me? And I was like, this is not the plan. So, anyways, that's how it all began.
Wow. What
Yeah.
is your authority? And we'll get into what this all means.
Yeah.
I'm curious what yours
So
is.
my authority, and authority is the piece that talks about how we make decisions, is emotional, also called wait for clarity. So it's about not committing to things instantaneously. So I didn't. I was like, interesting, send me more info. Like he sent me, ebooks on human design. That was kind of all that was available at the time. And he lived in LA actually at the time, and I was going to LA a couple weeks later. So we honestly just started talking. He just started showing me like all these crazy complex charts of the ways that human design could be applied to business and individuals. And I had come from a startup background and was just like, oh my God, like this is the missing piece. Like people don't understand each other. Like this is the way that people can understand each other. So um, I did say yes, but it wasn't immediate. And then I went to Bali right after that, but then he moved to New York so we could build it together for a couple of years. Yeah.
Wow. And
Yeah.
are you still in touch with him now?
I'm not in touch with him now.
Yeah.
I think that like it was such an amazing experience and he was my first teacher,
It put
and
you
like
on the path.
100%. But I also think that our approach to human design kind of became increasingly different. And as I got more into it, but also the honest answer is that like we like did not build a sustainable business. It was so early. We were
Yeah.
only focused on human design for business and like we just weren't making enough money to support ourselves. And so in 2017, I got a job offer from somebody who had been a client and loved human design and was opening this big, beautiful space in New York City.
Yeah.
And so I ended up walking away from him, which was obviously a really hard decision, a hurtful decision,
Mm.
because I like needed to find another way to support myself. And the plan was actually not to continue doing human design. I was just like, didn't think that there was any path to making it a career for myself. It was more just like a hobby. Um,
Right. To make it
and then
scalable.
totally. And then a couple months later, it was just like, I got invited into it again and I started again and it was really flowed. But, he was amazing. His name's Richard and I'm so beyond grateful for all that he offered. But, our paths diverged.
Was is something like that in your chart where, because I know that you are writing a book on how to make powerful decisions and
Yeah.
decision making in general in regards to human design. And like making a decision like that
Yeah.
to go back to a job or change your life in that way.
Yeah.
I don't know. Is that defined more in the chart, like in the gate, like in the gritty details of the chart?
Well, one thing that is really interesting, yes, it is. Like, I think that for me, well, I want to say two pieces. First, when he and I started working together, we share a profile in human design, which is another part. You guys are going to hear lots of wild language, but basically, we were like in different phases of the same profile. And
Interesting.
so for me, I was 25 years old. Like the first 30 years of this profile is like throw things against the wall, like try it all. Like you're going to like try things, let them go, make mistakes. He was in the 50 plus phase of that profile, which is very much like, this is my time to share my gifts with the world. And I remember when we first connected, he was like, this is not a smart time to partner with you because of the phase that you're in. Like you're in
Wow.
such an experimental phase that it's like, it's not, I can't really rely on you to like be with me for the long haul. And at the time I was like, no, I'm in it. Like this is my like
Yeah.
and it was just so interesting to kind of watch it all play out. And it was like, no, I really had to try it and learn and then experiment. And so like we were actually living our design so perfectly, but it
Yeah.
did bring us away from each other. Um, and then I think the piece that you spoke to, yeah, I think our human design chart, like, and that's what my entire book is about, is like how we can use it to make empowered decisions in our lives and often scary decisions. Like when this new invitation and opportunity came for me, it actually felt very exciting. Like my body was like, oh my God, yeah, I get to like open this big, beautiful space. I get to like curate all the events. I get to like, and I get to be part of this founding team. And also the founders love human design. So I can like keep sharing it in really informal, casual ways. But then there was my mind that was like, but you're giving up on the dream. And like what I didn't realize was like taking that job is literally the thing that accelerated my entire dream because I built my entire business out of that space, out of the members. And I only left that job when I was making more from human design than from that job. And so like it catalyzed it all. And like I could never have anticipated it had I chosen from my mind, but like choosing from the place of like this just feels right in ways that I don't even understand. Like
Yes.
is just like that's, human design just helps us tune into that and trust that and know like how to let that lead our lives.
I love that so much. It really is the greatest permission slip to be
Yeah,
like, that feels really good. You rode that wave, you made that decision, and it's safe to go in this direction. So do it.
correct. And like you don't know why, and you're not going to
You don't know
know why
why.
immediately, but
Yeah.
like it will emerge. And so yeah,
So
it's
good.
been a journey.
Okay, so for everyone listening right now, if you would like to follow along with your human design, I want you to go to the link in my bio right now, click it, get your blueprint. There's a discount code, just use the code quantum,
Yep.
and you'll be able to kind of follow along as Erin goes through what all these different aspects are of human design. So
Yeah.
pause, go get your blueprint, put in the word quantum for your discount, and come back so you can listen. Okay.
Great. Okay.
So let's go over the five types.
Okay. So in human design, there are 5 different types: manifesting generators, projectors, reflectors, and manifestors. This is such an essential part of your design, and it's also just the first piece. So I'm going to
Mm,
start with your design because
okay.
you're a generator. Okay.
I make
So
up most of the population.
right. And so some people are like, feel like, does that mean I'm not special? But it's like, once you hear them, you're like, oh, of course. Like, these are the people we need to like bring all the amazing things to life. But go ahead.
I feel like human design is such an ego boost. Like once you like read
It
your
is an ego
chart,
boost.
you're like, oh my God, I am God's gift to the earth.
It's so true. I know people like, they're like, I read my blueprint every morning as
Yeah.
a way to be like, I am awesome. And like,
I'm
I'm
awesome.
ready to show up. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So generators and manifesting generators are quite similar. So I'll talk about generators first. Many people group these together and then kind of talk about some of the distinctions. So as a generator, you are somebody who is a very natural creator and doer. Like you're here to wake up like energy. I know, obviously you're here to wake up like energized and on fire, kind of use up your day, use up your energy throughout the day in ways that feel deeply satisfying, whether it's, building and working or whether it's spending time with your son or whether it's moving your body or dancing. Like you're just meant to like use it up and drop into bed like delightfully spent. You're like, I
Mm,
used it all up and now I can sleep. If you haven't fully expended your energy, you might actually have a hard time sleeping or a hard time going to bed. And I would say a big lesson for you is because you have all this natural resource and vitality and energy, people can want it and you can be kind of pulled in a lot of different directions. And so your work is to stay really connected to what feels the most satisfying to you, what lights you up the most, what feels the most exciting, because when you invest your energy in those things, it just gives you so much more and you light up the world around you. Whereas
Mm,
when you're saying yes out of obligation or because you think you should, it's like a fast track to burnout. And you kind of project this very sluggish, frustrated energy, which is like just not how you're meant to be.
yeah.
And the last piece that I would share high level is that you're also not really meant to chase after anything in your life. Like things are just meant to like show up in your world and you have a gut response or not. And if you feel that kind of gut feeling and that gut pull, then you follow it, you make it happen. But if you're like not feeling that, to just kind of let it go for now.
That
Uh,
explains my life.
Great.
I feel like the shadow side of that for me you spoke to a little bit is like, and I want to hit on the shadows too of like that
Of
burnout
course.
piece or like compromising myself to
Yeah,
make other people comfortable at the cost of myself. And
totally.
it's like showing up for me a lot lately. So
Yeah.
I'm trying to work through that.
Yeah, and I think that it's really easy for these people to think that like prioritizing their own satisfaction, their own desires is somehow selfish. But it's
Mm,
like, again, like that is the thing that sets you up to be like so energetic and like such an amazing force in your home and around your husband and around your son. And so like
yeah.
everybody benefits when you prioritize that.
Yeah.
But generators can get pulled in a lot of different directions, feel like they're kind of being leached constantly. And so it requires a cultivation of pretty strong boundaries because they're going to get pulled like their energy, like, and I feel like you guys will probably feel this from Ashley. Like it feels like a big hug. Like it's a radiant sun. Like you're just pulling the people in. And so just because you're pulling them in doesn't mean they're meant for you. Just because you're pulling the opportunities in doesn't mean they're meant for you.
Ooh,
Um, so really
that's
trust in your
good.
gut to know what you're free for and available for.
That's so good. Thank you.
Of course, manifesting generators are very similar, all this amazing energy and vitality and power. For them, they might find that they're very multi-passionate. They might love moving their energy in between many different things and might feel like a little bit bored if every day is the same. These people are the ones that have careers. They're like, okay, I was a pastry chef here, and then I became like a TV host, and then I like went to school to get like a master's in clinical psychology, and then this happened. Like
Wow.
they're just so multidimensional and they can often feel like they're scattered or doing too much because of that.
Mm,
They often need that level of variety and stimulation to stay excited and engaged. They're very similar to you in that a big shadow side is just like they're saying yes to anything and everything because they feel like they have the energy, but it burns them out. So, really being very discerning about what they actually feel available for. Manifesting generators are also super fast. They can feel like a little bit superhuman to the rest of us. Like they
mm,
can like find the fastest way to make something happen, but in doing so, they can like skip a few steps along the way. And that's just part of their process. So one thing I would really be aware of as a manifesting generator is that others are not going to move as fast as you, and it's probably going to make life hard to expect them to
mm.
and so really giving yourself that permission. It's so funny because I was like, my daughter's a manifesting generator, and I was talking to like a baby intuitive this
Ooh,
week. I know, recommended by Catherine, who about the baby that's in my belly. But she was so funny because she was talking about my daughter, and she obviously doesn't know about human design, my work, any of it. And she was like, your daughter, like, she's going to try a lot of things. Like, she's going to try a lot of, like, it was just so funny because she was describing manifesting generator, like, so, like, word for word. And I was like, that's so crazy, you
that's so
know?
cool.
And the
That's so
opposite of how
cool.
she was describing the daughter. Anyways, it was so fascinating to
I
me.
think Maverick is a manifesting generator too. I'm almost 100% sure. So yeah, it's going to be very interesting to navigate as like a projector and a generator who I'm
Yeah.
very like focused on one thing at a time.
Look, I mean, look at what you created, and like I remember sitting with a client a few years ago, and his daughter was a manifesting generator, and he was a generator like you. And I remember him sitting with me and being like, Erin, I'm so frustrated because like she's trying lacrosse, she's trying softball, like she's doing basketball. Like he's like, she just like won't pick a lane. Like he was like ran competitive track for like,
Ever.
all straight through. And so it was just so funny hearing him say that. And I was like, God, she's doing it perfectly. Like she's just like nailing her design. It's just not your design. And it was just
Ooh,
like such a relief for him to hear because he was like, wow, I thought she was like so unfocused and just like not dedicated. And it was just that like she needed something different than what I needed. And so I think at the base, most fundamental level, that's what human design offers us is like so much compassion and understanding for ourselves, but also for the people around
others.
us.
It's
because
like
we just, yeah.
understanding love languages of other people, but their design of the way that they're meant to live, not just their preference of, how they want to be loved.
Totally. In all the ways, like how can I communicate with him? How can I support
Yeah.
them in making decisions? Like
Right.
all the things. Like I just love knowing my daughter's design for that reason. And
Oh,
obviously
so
she's like
cool.
a peanut, but I'm still
Yeah.
like just aware of it because I'm like, this is so fun. Okay.
That's so cool.
So then we've got projectors.
You're a projector.
I'm a projector. So projectors are not natural doers in the same way. And that's not to say that they can't make things happen. Obviously they can. It's just that their energy is going to ebb and flow. And projectors are very natural leaders, teachers, guides, coaches. They're so good at stewarding other people's energy. They're so good at mastering systems and teaching on systems. They just have like so much sensitivity to the people around them, and they're so wise about people. And so they often find themselves in positions where they're leveraging that gift. And so when I say you're not a natural doer, all I really want you to hear is that you carry so many gifts beyond your capacity to like produce and make things happen. And so like just giving yourself a beat, giving yourself pause, like giving yourself
Yeah.
space. I know for me, like for you, you might find a lot of satisfaction like creating and making a lot happen.
Yeah.
Like for me, when I just like try to keep going, it's like I actually become so disconnected from my gifts. And it's
Mm,
like only when I create space to kind of let them arise that like they come very naturally. And so it's more the energy is not going to be consistently available. It's going to ebb and flow. And so I would really encourage my fellow projectors to just allow a bit more space into your life. And I
mm,
will say that our biggest shadow as projectors is to be super overzealous and not know when to stop.
yeah.
Often generators know when to stop. They're like, my energy's done. I'm like,
Done. I say that.
I'm
I'm
done.
done.
Totally. My husband too. And I'm just like, he's like, why are you still working? And I'm like, I have no idea. Like, I just don't have the thing that tells me when to stop. So I just keep going. And so I think as a projector, knowing that like it's okay to stop. Rest is, not unproductive. And honestly, being unproductive is really, really good for you. So allowing that in.
Wow. That's
And yeah, and I think as a projector, you're going to be invited into things. So it basically means when you think about intimate relationships or career opportunities, the best ones are the ones where somebody just like really sees you. You're like, I feel so recognized, I feel so seen. And part of why that's required is that because you carry all these very unique gifts, you need people to recognize them and see them and want to create space for you to share them. And I will say as projectors, like it's so tempting for us to offer all kinds of advice because we see so much. But if people are not ready to hear it, it's just going to go over their head and cultivate a lot of bitterness in us. So
and
also
your energy.
100%. So an invitation is a way to conserve your energy and ensure the
Mm.
people that you're sharing with are actually ready for your wisdom. It was so insightful to look back on my relationship with my sister and be like, oh wow, I see why I was just like offering all this advice to like somebody who like didn't want any of it and like why it made her so angry. And it was such a lesson to be like,
Yeah.
I'm gonna sit back. I'm gonna wait for the right moment.
That's so good. I have a quick question, and maybe it'll fit in now or later. You tell me. But as a projector, someone who is waiting for that invitation, I look at you and I'm like, you are such a boss in your collaborations with people. And,
Hmm.
I admire that about you where you're like, okay, let me send an email to see if this person wants to partner with my blueprint, or let me see
Yeah.
if, and you've had some major collaborations, major partnerships, and I feel like you've initiated that.
Yeah. So I think one thing that's been a big lesson for me as a projector, like when I first heard this about my design, I felt like super disempowered. I was
Hmm.
because like I have a lot of drive in my design and like a lot of
Yeah.
ambition. And so like I was just like, I don't know how to do that waiting for an invitation. And I learned that like one, my most important piece is visibility. And so like the way that our business has been built and like it's gonna change. We will start depending on like other channels, but like it's all been like Instagram, podcasts, newsletters. Like I just share. I just make myself visible like often and
Yeah.
like the right people come. And so that's been how it's all been built. And there are absolutely moments, like you said, that I do reach out, especially like we've explored this new kind of collaboration model. I think that like when I reach out and like am super pitchy and salesy, like it just never works. Like
Right.
when I reach out, it's very much like, hey, I exist. This is here. See what, like, are you interested in
Yeah.
it? And like,
Right.
I think the way that I really learned to do that well is that like most of the world is here to respond, like you, like Catherine. And so my only job is to give people a thing to respond to, to not pressure them into a thing, but being like, hey, this exists. And if it feels like it would be a benefit to you, amazing. And I feel like what's also been really fun about the collaborations we've been exploring is like it's such an obvious like win-win-win-win for everybody that it's actually been a
Yeah.
really fun thing to share about because I'm just like, this would actually be amazing for you. You get to choose whether you actually see that
Right.
and want that. But like here it
So true.
is. And I also feel like I have in general done it with people that I already actually feel really seen by and like
Hmm.
feel really connected with, and that's made it easier. The cold things are a little bit harder, but when I
Yeah.
feel really seen, it's like it's such an easy thing because once you already feel that kind of energetic invitation with somebody, it does not mean that you cannot initiate within that dynamic.
Okay, that is what I want all projectors here,
Yeah.
especially in life and business. Like,
Yeah.
you know, you also are the invitation
Yeah.
and you don't have to necessarily wait to be like, "Oh, hey, you're just making yourself visible."
Yeah, and I think what I would say is that you're making yourself visible and just pay attention to like who invites you in and again whether it's formal or energetic. Like if somebody expresses like curiosity about you and like ask questions and like there's appreciation, like that is an invitation. Like lean into that
Mhm.
dynamic more.
Yeah.
And so like I think I will receive messages from people being like, "Can I like initiate a social hang?" And I'm like, "Oh my God, I initiate social hangs all the time, but they're also with people that I'm just like, we've got a thing. Like I know that
Right.
we've got a thing.
Yeah. Right.
So it's like it's trusting that, and you'll know when it feels good and when it doesn't. Like there have been moments where I've like pitched things in the business and it felt like so exhausting, and I'm like the way that I'm doing it is not it right
Yeah.
now. And I guess also what I would just share more generally for every type is that like human design is meant to empower us, not disempower us. And so like let it be an experiment. Like give yourself permission to see what feels good and what doesn't. I think had I been like, I'm just not going to ever reach out to anybody, it's just like
That
there
doesn't
are
feel
things that yeah, and like there are actually ways of reaching out. Like I had a biz dev background. Like I'm like weirdly good at biz dev. That was like my career before
What
human
is it?
design. Oh, it's just like business development.
Oh, business. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just kind of like building partnerships and connections and like, but it's been like I just have found a way of reaching out that feels really connected to me and doesn't feel super salesy.
It's so inspiring to me. I love watching you do your thing. So good. I'm glad we
Try my
touched on that
best.
because I think it's important
Yeah.
for projectors to hear.
Yeah.
Okay,
And I think,
what's
okay.
no, go ahead. No, go ahead.
No, I love it. Let's talk about manifestors.
Okay,
Okay.
manifestors.
So manifestors, do you know any manifestors?
I actually don't.
Okay. Well, you definitely do. We just don't know who they are.
Yeah, that's true.
I'm trying to think of if there are any manifestors in our mastermind. I'm sure.
I'm sure.
Um, okay, so manifestors are meant to be very innovative, disruptive forces. Like these are people that are really good at getting the ball rolling, not necessarily at doing all the doing to keep an idea alive. So like their idea, like they're here to like kickstart new ideas and visions and then delegate and hand things off and free their energy up for the next thing to initiate. And so their challenge is often like staying in a thing too long because they feel like they've got to like bring the thing to fruition in new ways. And then they burn out because their energy was meant to be used at the beginning. They're just like not really here to like follow anyone else's path. Like they're here to do things in their own way and like in very provocative ways. And they're often not really here to be guided or controlled or told what to do. I shared this story with my sister earlier. My sister's a manifestor, my mom's a manifestor. So I was really trying to guide people that did not want to be guided growing up. And so that was just a big not the people for me to guide. But these are people that are often thrive in more entrepreneurial settings or in like corporate settings where they just are given freedom and like a domain to be in charge of. Often a core value for these people is freedom, feeling just
Wow.
free to kind of do what they want, when they want, how they want. And they are here to initiate things. They're
It
not
makes
here to,
me it
yeah.
makes me think of Natalie Ellis, but I don't think she's a manifester.
No, she's a generator.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it is, but it's also like, I think of yeah, and it would be so interesting to talk to her. And I know we talked about it on our podcast, but like again, for her, opportunities are just like meant to come, and it's just kind of trusting her gut to know where to put her energy.
Yeah.
Like manifestors, I often feel their energy. There's like an intensity and a power where they walk in, and like
Oh,
it's the one type where I'm like, you're definitely a manifestor.
no
In a way that
way.
I'm not really great at perceiving that. My husband is actually better at perceiving that than I
I'm
am.
so good at being like, that's a generator. I don't know why.
Totally, totally. I
Yeah.
cannot even sense projectors, but like manifestors, like you just feel it.
Whoa. So are
Yeah.
they better at manifesting because they're called manifestors or it has nothing to do with it?
Yeah. I think that like they're really good at bringing their vision to life and they often like have a vision and just like want to go create it. But I think that we all can manifest in our own way. It's just going to look different for each of us.
Okay. That's good to know because I think that could be a
Yeah.
misconception.
100%. And then the final type is reflector. This is the most rare type. These people, in some ways, will probably resonate with them all because they will feel throughout the month like a manifestor, like a generator, like a projector. Like
Mhm.
they're just not one thing. There's so many things that is their gift. And so, so much of being a reflector is not trying to put yourself in a box or be consistent or predictable, but like allow yourself to be whatever you want to be that day because it's all you. It means that you might show up differently with your friends and your work colleagues and then this community and this and your family. And like that's just because each one is pulling out different parts of you.
Mm.
We call these people evaluators in the context of business because they just like see, sense, and feel things that so many people miss. They're so good at like observing an environment, seeing what's like not working and how things can be improved. So being in positions where they can really tap into that gift. And these are people that are incredibly sensitive to their physical space. So being in the right city, the right home, the right table at a restaurant, the right hotel room makes all the difference and kind of allowing the right opportunities to come into their lives.
Wow. Wow,
Yeah,
wow, wow. So in any given event that you've done, like if you're in a room of 100 people, how many reflectors might be in that room?
they're 1%. So usually I'll have
Oh
like one or
my
two.
God, that's wild.
I know. But you
That's,
know them. They're in your life. You just don't know who they are.
yeah, I'm gonna
And
find
they're
them.
really hard for me to identify because it just like one of my good friends is a reflector and it's just so funny. I was like, oh, like she's definitely a manifesting generator. And like the next day, I'd be like, oh, she's definitely a projector, and then I'd be like, aha, she's a reflector. She's all
She's
over
like
it.
a chameleon.
Exactly.
Wow. Okay. So thank you for going over those types. And so I'm curious, do all types have the same authority?
No.
Like if you're a reflector, you have a specific authority, or if you're okay.
So
Okay.
it starts kind of breaking down from there. So that's kind of the highest level. They all have the same strategy. So like
Okay.
projectors are here to be invited in, generators are here to kind of see what their gut responds to, manifestors are here to initiate, reflectors are here to kind of put themselves in the right space and see what happens. Then it starts breaking down and things start getting way more specific. So the authority piece, like we talked about, is how you make decisions. For
Mm-hmm.
generators, there are seven possible authorities. I feel like recently my brain has like been blanking when I'm like, how many are, but generators and manifesting generators can be one of two. Projectors have five potential authorities they can have,
Wow.
manifest three, and reflectors always have the same authority.
Okay. So when you're looking at a human design chart, if you're not already looking at yours while you're listening, you're seeing at the top, it's going to say your type. Then it's
Yeah,
going to say your self and your not self, right?
correct. And that goes along with type. So every type will have the same kind of signpost to stay on track in their lives.
Okay. So the self and not self. Can you talk about that for a sec?
hmm
Okay.
So it basically, these are two signs that just can serve as kind of like, think of them as like guardrails in your life. So for generators and manifesting generators, when you feel on track, it shows up as a feeling of satisfaction. Like if
Mm,
you go to bed and you're like, I am so contented and satisfied and fulfilled by the way that I use my energy, or I'm so satisfied in my marriage, or like, God, motherhood is so satisfying to me. Like I love using my energy in that way. It's just like, you're right on track, Ashley, keep going.
yeah.
Whereas to be off track, which is inevitable, is
Yeah.
frustration. And so when you're like, oh God, I'm feeling a lot of frustration with this dynamic with my colleague, or a lot of frustration with a parent, whatever it is, like it
Yeah.
basically is like this is a signal for you to look at that situation and see if a course correct is needed. And
Yep.
maybe it's pulling your energy out and seeing if you could pull back in. Maybe it's walking away. Maybe it's having a conversation. Like there's not one answer. It's not like, okay, leave the relationship. It's like something about this is not working and needs to change to move you back to satisfaction. So I actually love the not self, even as like
Yeah.
annoying as the terms can feel, because like it's just going to be like, okay, this is not working. You need to look at this thing.
It's really an indicator of alignment, right? Like,
Exactly.
yeah. Okay, cool. And it's interesting because when I learned this and I look back on my life and just even the moments as a child when I felt so frustrated at certain things, like frustration was always so prominent. Like looking
Yeah,
back, I'm like, holy shit, that's wild because it's literally my design.
exactly. And that's
Yeah.
why it's so useful to know it from a young age, because like it's just going to validate things you already know.
Right.
Human design often doesn't feel unfamiliar. It feels like, oh, you're telling me things I already know, but now that a stranger has told me, I feel like so much permission to actually listen.
Yeah.
So, briefly, projectors, when they're on track at success, it's like recognize, appreciate it. It can be financial success, but even just like, God, I feel like so successful in my partnership. I feel like I'm like so seen for my gifts. I feel compensated well for them. And to be off track is bitterness. What I find is that
Ooh,
bitterness is rooted in like just a lack of appreciation and recognition. It's like I have so much to share, and nobody's listening. I have so many gifts, and why is no one inviting me to share them, you know?
wow.
So
Has that shown up for you on your journey?
for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, and it's again, the bitterness is like what it's rooted in a lack of recognition. Where
Hmm.
I'll be like in a community, I'm like, oh, this just doesn't feel right. Like, I just don't feel recognized here. Like, it's time for me to move, or like You
Yeah.
know, I remember at that job that I was mentioning, there were moments of bitterness with my boss. And every time I would like have a conversation just to be like, is the recognition still there? Because if it's not, it's time to go. And like we would
Right.
actually always readjust things and have a conversation where I was like, oh God, I actually still feel so seen. Like we just needed to change things up a little bit. And so for me, bitterness often was what inspired that conversation.
Wow. I think what's so interesting too is like it gives you permission and people permission to be like, I want to be recognized. Like that
Hmm.
feels good to me because I think we've been shamed to want recognition or like it's wrong to want that or it's wrong to want to be visible or want to be seen or want to be famous or whatever the fuck, you know? But I
Yeah,
feel like it really does give you permission to be like, this feels good to me to feel
totally.
recognized.
And like, and what I realized as a projector is like when I feel recognized is when I feel energized to show up.
Mm.
And so like I feel like I'm at my best when I feel recognized. And so like it's just nobody really gets the best of me if I don't feel recognized. Yeah, but so much of being a projector is being seen. And so like that's also a helpful thing. Like you might be um connected or partnered with somebody who doesn't need that recognition. Whereas like for me, I like need words of affirmation. My husband
Yeah.
does not need those. I offer those. He's like, I'm good, thanks. And like for me, I'm just like, I need them. You know what I mean? Just like remind me that like you see me, remind me the things that you value because that means like so much to me.
That's so
Yeah.
important. That's invaluable, honestly.
Totally. Manifestors, the sign they're on track is peace. It's just like the freedom to do what they want when they want. And also a sense of stillness, because often it's like in those peaceful, quiet moments that the new ideas they're meant to birth will come through. And to be off track is anger.
Mm.
And that anger is often rooted in a sense of like disempowered feeling of like not being in control or somebody else kind of running the show in a way that doesn't feel good to them. And then for reflectors to be on track is surprise. This might be my favorite one as somebody who like does not have it, but
Is
like
what?
is surprise.
Oh, wow.
Because like so much of being a reflector is like there's so many parts of them that want to come out. So surprise is very much like there's just like this delightful experience of life of like, but then this happened and then I was here and then this happened. Like it's just like so much kind of magic is transpiring, whereas being
Love
off
that.
track is often disappointment.
That is so good. That
Yeah.
is so good. I mean, imagine knowing this about yourself and being able to course correct as needed throughout your day, throughout your week, throughout, like just your life in general. It's just so helpful.
I know. And it's so, and that's what, again, I think I said this at the beginning, but I think what I love about human design is how practical it is. I
Hmm.
feel like there are so many amazing systems that give us all this juicy information, and then we have no idea what to do with it. And I
Yeah.
feel like human design like kind of pairs the two, where it's like, here's all this great, juicy information, and here are all these tools to actually use in your life. Like for me as a projector, it's like, okay, I need to create space in my days. I can't book things back to back. I need to only say yes to things where I'm invited into. I need to sleep on my decisions. I need to like see, where I feel success. Like there's just so many things that like I go off track every single day, and yet my design always brings me back. And so
Mm,
such an amazing tool in that way.
it's so good. So what I love about what you're writing for your book is
Yeah.
how useful it can be for people when it comes to decision making.
Yes.
Because obviously we make decisions all fucking day, every day, big and small decisions,
Exactly.
inescapable. And I think it's really common for doubt to creep up or fear to creep up. So can we talk about
Authority.
the authority? Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I don't expect you to know all the things, but you really do know many of them. I think that I love what you said. I just want to say that I think that's why that is the crux of the book is that
Yeah.
like there are so many useful parts of human design. And I think arguably the most important piece is how we make decisions because every
Yeah.
day, like you said, we're choosing. And so like,
Mhm.
and so often we get in our heads around like what we think we should do or what we shouldn't. And like human design reveals like a much deeper knowing that is so much more reliable. Like even I was in a session this morning and she was a gut-based decision maker like you, and we'll talk about them all. But it was so funny because I was listening to her talk and I was like, that's your mind talking, it's not your gut. And she'd be like, oh my God, and then I'd be like, that's your gut talking. She's like, oh my God. Like it was just so funny because she was just like so loving being called out because I was just like, you can hear when people are talking where they're speaking from and like what
Ugh.
speaking from that knowing or whether they're speaking from another place. And like it was just so clarifying for her because she just kind of needed that reflection of somebody witnessing where it was coming from.
I mean, I need that all day, every day. Can
Right.
I just carry you around? I have something we can explore on that.
Okay, good. We'll do it. So,
Okay.
anyways, briefly, there are 7 different authorities. If you have an emotional or wait for clarity authority, it means that you might have an initial instinct, but you are not meant to make decisions instantaneously. You're
Mhm.
meant to sleep on things and give yourself a day or two before you commit. This is mine. I find it very annoying while also very useful because like I'm always just like, I want to do it. And
Yeah.
then I wake up the next day and I'm like, why in the world did I commit to that thing?
Right.
And so like and then I have to back out and then I feel flaky. And so like I just know like giving myself a beat before I say yes is the best way to actually ensure I say yes to the right things. And I also just want to say that like how we enter things is everything. Like I
Mm.
cannot tell you how often I've sat with people and they're like, Erin, I want to leave this relationship. And I'm like, okay, when did you know it wasn't right for you? They're like, from the minute I said yes, and that was 3 years ago. And I'm just like, if only we trusted ourselves, you know what I mean? So, anyways,
Right.
yeah. And
That's
it's so funny because I'm writing a chapter on this. Literally, that's the one I'm working on right now is how to make aligned decisions in relationships using our authority. And I've gotten all these stories from clients. And it's so funny. The people that have this emotional wait for clarity authority, they often knew their partner for a long time before they started dating them. Like it's
Mm.
like I knew my husband for 4 years before we ever started dating.
Right.
So it's just so
Right.
funny watching that pattern of like just really being able to feel into somebody on so many different parts of your emotional wave and life experience and like having them feel right throughout all of it.
Mm.
So, okay, then we've got trust your gut or sacral decision makers like you. Basically means you're meant to make decisions in the moment based on your gut instinct. It's a belly-based thing that will either pull you towards or push you away from something. It comes with no reason and it responds best to something specific. So what I
Mm.
mean by that is if like I'm like asked you, what do you want to do with your career in the next 10 years? You're gonna be like, what? You know what I mean? But if I was like, does it still feel right to kind of build what you're building? Then like it gives you it very specifically like, yes, it does,
Yes.
or actually, I'm not sure. And the answer is
Mm.
yes, you know? So it's just like the specificity is like such a beautiful way to help these people tune into what actually they're available for.
Mm.
There are tune into your intuition splenic authorities, very similar to you. It's just not gut based. It's more kind of a quiet whisper of an intuition. It's like a voice they hear, a subtle knowing. It doesn't need a thing to like respond to, and it's super instantaneous. So these people are meant to be very spontaneous and fast and just like move very quickly as soon as they get quiet enough to hear themselves.
Is splenic, is that like related to your spleen? I know this
Yeah.
is, it is. It is related to your
Well,
spleen.
it comes from without getting into all the details, like it basically means that your splenic center, your spleen center in human design is defined. The biological correlation is the spleen.
Wow. That's cool.
Yeah. Then we've got self-projected, also known as talk it out. These people find clarity by speaking things aloud with people they trust and just seeing what truth emerges, not because they're trying to figure it out, but like they might just say a thing and the tone of the voice changes. You know what I mean? And so like they just need to kind of talk things out and verbally process. I'm obviously like missing a lot of details here, but these are high level
Very high
points.
level. Yeah.
Um, there are people that are called tune into your willpower, also known as ego. They are meant to make decisions based on what their heart is in. And what I mean by that is like, they're like, do I have the will to make this happen? Like, do I actually desire it? Like, do I want it? Do I feel motivated? Like, when their heart is in it, like, truly nobody can stop them. And the thing is, like, even though you're a gut-based decision maker, you also have a little bit of this as well. Like,
Mm.
when you're motivated to make things happen, you're just like, everybody get out of the way. Like, this thing is happening. Whereas, like, when you say yes to anything you're half-hearted about, it's just going to be like kind of impossible. And so, yeah, clear.
Interesting. Is that in my chart or is that
Yeah.
just generator or sacral authorities in general?
No, that's in your chart because it comes
Interesting.
from the ego center and you have a defined ego center.
Oh, wow. Which I
So,
don't even know what that means exactly, but we can talk about that in a little bit.
yeah. Well, my favorite part about it, quick tangent, is that like the strength that you have associated with it, which I've told you about before when we were just in Austin, is like you have the gift of basically transformation and like shock, where you're here to kind of transform people out of an old way of doing things into like a new and better way of doing things. And I see so many coaches and teachers have this because like it's a very intense energy. It's
Yes.
like if you get in, like your life is gonna change. You know what I mean? So you better be willing to like be open to that change. But like that's kind of that very intense ego, like just will.
Ooh,
Like you just can like really empower people and make them believe anything's possible.
love that.
Okay, the last two, there are people that are called be in the right space and talk it out, also called mental authorities, sounding board authorities. They've also got to talk things out, but often in kind of multiple spaces and people with people that feel good and spaces that feel good. And the final authority is for all reflectors. And they are meant to give themselves a full 28 to 30 days before they make a big decision, which I know
Whoa.
can feel like really wild to a lot of us. And yet, when I talk to these people, they're like, Yeah, obviously. Like I remember doing a partnership session and the one of the partners had this and he's like, yeah, I like kind of mulled over this teapot for a month and then like really landed on the fact that it's right. His girlfriend was like, oh, it's so annoying, but also like, but he always makes the right decision. So like it is, and it's not for every decision, of course, it's for the big decisions, but like they've got to go through a process of like sampling message from many different angles, inside people's energy, outside of it, like, and then they just land in like a really clear knowing. And like it's just worth waiting for. Because if they
Mm,
say yes to a job or a home or a city and then like have to kind of, pull themselves out of it, it's just not worth it. So the people
mm.
that I share about this with, they really seem to get it in a way that like I don't even understand.
That's so cool. It's
Yeah,
so interesting.
I know.
I find for me personally, and I don't know if you come across this with a lot of sacral authorities, but I'll have that like knowing in the moment, and then
Yeah.
time will go by and I will just go back on my decision. I will doubt it. I will get caught up in my head.
Yeah.
Um, it's really challenging sometimes. And Catherine has always been really good with me whenever we're together and that happens where I'm like doubting something. She's like, "What was your initial reaction? What was your gut instinct? Like, tell me right now. Like when you first said yes to this, what was it?" And I'm like,
Exactly.
it was a yes." But is that always true? Always? Like, okay, can I give you my scenario really quick?
Yeah. And just to say, just in case you
Yeah.
guys can't see my face, it is always true. And like maybe it will like the mind will quiet down. But like what I see so commonly with these people is they will have the visceral instinct and their mind will almost immediately get in the way and talk them in or out of that thing. And
Mm,
like, and you will know when it's your gut speaking, when it's just like this thing just felt right or it just feels right. I don't know why. I don't know where it's gonna take me. Whereas like if you're like, I should do this because of this, or it might lead to this thing, like that's not your gut speaking. So your mind will not stop getting in the way. The work is to kind of just stop listening to it in those decisions.
mm, it's
Okay,
so
give me your scenario.
challenging.
It
Okay,
is.
this is like so silly, but like, okay, we have a wedding to go to in Greece.
Okay.
We got invited to a wedding. And initially I was like, we're going to Greece. And like,
Yeah.
it's also like, I want to go to Greece and also like have that experience with my family, and be on vacation. We would all go, the baby would go, my mom would go, Todd would go. And I haven't made moves because now I'm doubting it. I'm like, oh, it's going to be really hard. It's going to be a long, long travel. It's going to be a lot of things to think about, a lot of things to worry about, a lot of moving pieces. And like, do I really want to do that? And I'm just
You're in the mind now. Yeah. So again, one, your gut feeling can change. But I think in that example, like it's very clear when you kind of get into like all the details, like, yeah, it's a lot. And so like, but that is very much your mind. It's not like these things don't
right.
feel right. It's just like, oh God, there's a lot to figure out. So
Mm,
if you were to like just do your very, very, very best to just like give me your visceral response. If I was
okay.
to ask you right now, like, does it feel right to go to Greece with your family for this wedding?
Yes.
Then that's it, like that's it.
What the fuck? Oh my God.
It doesn't mean like all the logistics won't be annoying and things to
Right.
do, but like it's just noticing where you're speaking from and where you're choosing from. And so like I guess in this small experience that we've had here, it feels like the question is not whether you go. It's just like, okay, there's a lot to figure out. How can I make this process easier? But like we absolutely should go.
I've never regretted a vacation.
I mean, with your family to Greece, Greece is so beautiful.
I know. Okay.
Again, that's the mind. That's not why you should go, but it's like
Right.
the
Right.
instinct. Yeah.
Thank you for doing that with me. I feel a
My
lot
pleasure.
better. I'm book my
Okay.
flights later.
Book your
Maybe
flights,
tomorrow.
yeah. But
Yep.
the thing is, like, it's also knowing that it's a very natural part of the process to then talk yourself out of the thing. And like,
Mhm.
and so it is sometimes there is something about like acting kind of in the moment as a way to prevent that. But you just have to kind of keep returning that visceral response, like Catherine was saying.
It's so funny because when I'm on application calls with people that want to join my program, I often ask them, do you know your human design? What is
Yeah,
it? And what's your authority? Because I'm so curious. Because I feel like
totally.
from a business perspective of making a big financial commitment and time commitment, I want to be able to support them in making the best decision for themselves. And like
I
knowing their
know.
design would be so supportive in that.
Yeah, and I remember like I know that we talked about this a lot in the mastermind, like fast active bonuses and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And like I like get that, but I also like it's just not going to work for everybody.
Right.
Like I just remember when we opened up our first course to teach human design, like enrollment was open for a month. There was literally no incentive to sign up the first day versus the last day. And I just like can't even tell you the amount of messages I received where people like, I cannot tell you how relieving this felt that like
Mm.
I wasn't like punished for not signing up immediately. Like I actually like took a full month to feel into it and I decided it was a yes. So like
Wow.
it is really helpful to know people's authority because we're just like a lot of people are meant to be like, okay, I know in the moment. And that actually is really good for some people because they can't talk themselves out of it.
Right.
But some of us just can't decide like that.
It's so interesting. It's
Yeah. So I
so
love that you asked that.
Yeah. I mean, I think in for business in general, knowing your human design is so important. And also, I train coaches to be coaches and I want to bring in someone who can teach our coaches how to add human design at the highest level with their clients to be
Yes.
able to coach them better because yes, we teach open-ended questions are really powerful in coaching and there might be instances where closed-ended questions might be better for someone
Totally. When they're making a decision,
when they're making a decision.
when they're
Yeah.
like trying to tune into that and not for everybody, but for some people. And like, I have so many clients that are coaches that get blueprints for all their clients just as a way to be like,
Right.
I just need to like understand how they work. And even therapists of like, I just need to understand how I can support them because it's just going to be different for each person.
It really is. It
Yeah.
really, really is. So how did you come up with the idea to create blueprints? Was that something that naturally just happened?
So the name used to be the Humanual. Um,
Oh, I love that.
I look back and I'm like, oh gosh. No,
The human
in
manual.
my, I know it's cute. You should have seen them. When I started doing sessions with people, I would make a PowerPoint basically as a way to keep myself on track. And as I was learning human design, to also make sure that like I had all the information and I kind of laid it out, and then I would send it to people after.
Mm,
Um, and I started, and honestly, so I was just doing that. That was like part of the session. And my husband, who's a generator and here to respond to things, like he was just like sitting there watching. He's like, Erin, like people are like bringing you back their manuals and it's printed out and there are like notes all over it. And like, it's just clear that like it's a really valuable tool. He's like, what if we just like sold it by itself? And so it was him responding as a generator to like a thing that was already happening.
wow.
So I remember opening up my Instagram story and I was like, I'm gonna just like start selling these things like $95, same price as they are now. Who wants them? And like people just started Venmoing me. And I remember I just remember my husband being like, if we sell 100, then we'll know like there's a real thing there. Um, and it honestly just kept going. It's like I think that I've told you this, but like I made the first 12,000 by hand in Keynote. And it's so funny as like a
Yeah.
mother because like now I'm just like, there's truly no way I could have done that. But there was a period in my life where it was like I was just making blueprints all the time. Like if you talk to my friends, like making blueprints,
12,000.
12,000. Like it's just like it's one of those things that like I really put in a lot of effort and energy. And I just like I couldn't do that at this current phase of my life. And I
Wow.
love the version of myself that really had the endurance to show up in that way.
So
But yeah, it was
your husband built a technology to like be really specific to generate it for you. And it is
exactly.
incredibly accurate, like
Yeah.
incredibly. There's not one thing in there that I've read that's like, I don't think so. You know what I mean? Like it is so on freaking point.
It's so yeah, and just so you guys know how like personalized it is, there are like
Yeah.
over 400,000 possible versions of the Blueprint Guide. It's
Wow.
crazy, So it took years to kind of write all the content and create all this stuff. So it's been such a journey. It is like I don't think we ever anticipated that would be like the crux of our business, but like it just absolutely has been.
It's
Yeah,
wild. And I think before I mentioned like making it accessible to people because it's one thing to download your chart. You're not going to know what you're looking at.
yeah,
And this gives you like literally piece by piece by piece. So if you're listening to this and you're like getting turned on by it, like follow that feeling, follow
yeah,
that feeling because it's going to help you so much in your life.
yeah,
Um, okay, so on the human design chart,
yeah,
there are gates, there are things that are colored in, there are things that are defined, undefined,
yeah,
all things. And I know like we can't get into all the little details, but would love to know what that means in general. Like if your head one is open, it's
yeah,
undefined, what does that mean? Am
yeah.
I
So
undefined? I am, I
I
think.
believe, yeah, you are.
Yeah.
So there are two pieces that you just mentioned. The first is that if you look at the chart, you'll see that there are 9 different shapes. We call these centers in human design. Those shapes, if you're looking on our site, will either be white or gray. So open is white and shaded is gray or defined. Basically, the centers that are white in your design are the areas where you are the most open and receptive to other people's energy. It's where you can like take in a lot of stuff that's not yours. So it requires a lot of learning how to like set boundaries and really kind of like work with that energy. I think that these are areas that can often show up as our biggest challenges, but also
Mm.
are the source of our greatest wisdom. So, for example, you have an open head center, as you just shared. It means that you're incredibly open to like so many inspirations and so many ideas, and you're so easily inspired. And while that's an amazing gift, it also can make you feel quite scattered,
Yes.
because you might kind of come back and be like from a mastermind and be like, oh my God, there's 1,000 things that I want to do. And it's just like
Yes.
overwhelming because like there's 1,000 things that you want to do. And so I think a big lesson for you is that like not every idea that comes through is worth prioritizing. And so using your gut to really help discern which ones deserve your energy, which allows you to kind of live in the inspired energy of that
Mhm.
versus the scattered energy of that. Does that make sense?
That's so helpful. Yeah.
And then when a center is colored in and defined, it means that that's a more kind of consistent, reliable energy within you. So rather than where you're taking in energy, it's where you're pouring energy out into the world. And
Mm.
so an example for you is that ego center that I mentioned, like you have a defined ego. So like basically means that you've got a really strong, consistent sense of willpower. For a lot of us, it ebbs and flows, but like you just got it. And it means that like the energy that you pour out into the world is a super empowering energy when people are around you and they're like, I can do anything. Like you kind of just like unlock that in people. So it's really useful to know that defined center. So we know like where are we impacting people and how can we become conscious of it? Because another area where you're impacting people is your stress. If you're feeling really stressed, people will feel it. I have
Mm.
the same thing. So it's been a big lesson of like, oh, I'm feeling really stressed. Let me go like work out, have some time in
Yeah.
myself, and not have that pour out onto my team and my environment.
Yes. That's so good. It's funny because the ego thing, I grew up thinking I was lazy. I grew up like with this belief, like I'm lazy, I'm unmotivated, I'm this, I'm that. And then when I started finding my purpose and what lights me up, it was like that just fell away completely.
Totally. It's just like, because again, when your heart's not in it, it's going to be impossible to make anything happen.
Right.
But
That's
then when
true.
your heart's in it, it's just like you are like an achiever, like you're so deeply motivated in a way that's so powerful.
So good. So
And
good.
then that,
Okay.
go ahead.
Go ahead.
Oh, just the other piece you mentioned where it's kind of like the numbers and the gates and stuff. And those are just basically there are going to be pieces of our, and your blueprint will go into this, of course, but pieces of our design called channels, which just reveal our innate strengths. So it's just like, what are the things that come so easily and so naturally to us? Like, what are the things that are so unique to us? So that's really helpful just as a way to lean into those strengths more. And then when there are little half lines in your design, it basically means that it's an area where you're really meant to connect up with other people. So I just did a partnership session this morning where they had like 12 strengths they created together. Sorry, not 12. They had 6 strengths they created together. So it was so fun for them to look at like, oh, when we come together, all this new energy is unlocked.
Oh my God, that's probably cool for couples to see
So fun.
where they match up in their charts. Oh my God, I want to do that.
Yeah.
Okay, I feel like I totally forgot the numbers. What are they called in the chart?
Oh, the profile.
Profile.
There are 12 profiles. Any type can have any profile. It's such a cool part of the chart.
It's
Um,
so complex. It's wild.
I know people look at the chart, they're like, huh? Uh, and just so you guys know, with the blueprint that Ashley was mentioning, again, the discount code is quantum, but the whole point of the blueprint is not to overwhelm you with human design jargon. It's just to make your design like so applicable to everyday life, so simple, so practical, so empowering. So you need no human design knowledge for that thing to be accessible. Like I have people get
Yeah,
it for their entire teams, their families, their partners. It's just a
love it.
book all about you, inspired by your human
So
design.
good. So good.
So um the profile, let me just talk about yours to give people an
Okay.
example. Does that sound good? You are 3/5. I think I said there are 12 of them. So if anybody has a 3 in their profile like Ashley, it means that you're very naturally entrepreneurial. You're
Mm,
somebody who's like here to learn by doing. You're just here to like kind of tool around, mess things up, learn what didn't work, keep growing. Like you're a hands-on learner. Like somebody can tell you like this thing works, but not until you experience it for yourself will you actually trust it.
mm,
And you're somebody that also inspires through your own life experience and your own story. So if you were to write a book, which I know you will, like, and again, the session I had this morning, she had this profile too. She was like, I was trying to become like the subject matter expert on this thing, and it was so hard to write a book proposal. And the minute I actually allowed my own story and my own experience in, like everything happened so quickly.
wow.
And so, like, that is the magic of the 3. Like, your experience, your successes, your failures, truly all of it make you so magnetic and so relatable. And so,
Mm,
like, letting your journey be messy and letting your journey also be seen.
love that. That
That,
resonates.
The other part of your profile is the five. It basically means like you're not simply here to impact the people close to you. You're here to impact like a lot of people, and like solve problems and offer really innovative perspectives on things. But one thing to be aware of, especially I think in your position, is that it's really easy for people to project things onto you, to like
Mm,
think that you should be this, or you can save them in this way or lead them in this way. And like as seductive as that can be, it requires a lot of discernment for you to be like, is that actually a thing that I can do? Is that actually a thing I want to do? And just
yeah.
being super clear on what people can actually expect from you, because they can just like project so much onto you, often positive, but in a way that can turn negative if you're saying yes to things that aren't for you.
It's funny how that shows up for me in the way of almost like a fear of if I grow too big in my leadership and what I'm here to do in the world, that I'll just become a bigger projection screen for people. And like that scares me sometimes. So I work through that a lot.
Yeah, and I will say that like I do celebrity profiles on my Instagram, and most celebrities I look at all have fives in their profile.
It's so interesting. And everyone that I've listened to so far, like other podcasts that you've done, mostly all the women were fives
Yeah,
that are
it's
like,
interesting.
yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have a five?
Mm-mm.
Interesting. So Lacey and I from
Yeah.
our mastermind, we have like the same
She's a three
profile.
five too, huh?
She's a
Yeah,
three
yeah.
five generator. And we're like, and the way we run our businesses and the way we have like a single focus and like we do the thing and we like to do the same thing over and
You're
over and over
so good at
again.
saying, yeah.
Like it's just we were like, we're the same person. It was
I
wild.
love it. That's amazing. I so see that in her too.
Yeah, it's so cool.
Yeah.
What are your numbers?
I'm a 6'2".
Okay.
So a 6'2" is the two part is around the fact that like I'm very naturally hermity. And so like I really want to spend time alone, but I also can't spend so much time alone that people don't see me. So like having that space in my life is so important, especially as a mom. But also what the two is that like twos just like have this innate way of doing things that like I can study human design and like take all the courses, which I did. And also like I'm just gonna have my own way of sharing it that like
Yeah.
it's just my way. Like these people just like do things in this very easeful, natural way. And so it's so important to pay attention to like what feels the easiest, what feels the most natural. And that's been a really good reminder for me because there are so many parts of the business that don't feel easy and don't feel natural. And a previous version of myself would be like, oh, I've got to like figure out these things. And I'm just like, it's not my thing. It's like, it's just like,
Right.
it's just not where I thrive. And so I think really leaning into what comes easily and naturally. And then the six is the piece that I mentioned earlier about my former business partner, who is also a 6'2", is that with sixes, we live our life in three phases, where the first 30 years of our life is like trial and error galore. It's
This
just
is
like
only sixes.
only sixes. I think that
Wow.
I mean, sixes in some ways kind of like are leading the charge in this way. I believe that we all have a version of this a little bit because it is
Amazing.
so much around maturity, but like it can be really intense for sixes where the first 30 years is like just throw it all against the wall, like see what happens. It's like not a time in your life to figure anything out. It's a
Wow.
time to try things, and like learning that was so helpful because I was like really wanted to figure it out. 30 to 50, you kind of it's called on the roof. You kind of pull back, and it's like at 30 is when I moved to the woods, is like you kind of like
Mm,
start pulling back and seeing things from a higher view. You might find that things in your life settle and you just become a lot smarter about what's worth investing in. And I look back, it's like I moved to the woods and had a baby and got like it was just like so many things happened then, and the business kind of really became more predictable. And then
mm.
at 50 is actually when we're meant to hit our prime, which is not
Wow.
about waiting till then. It's more around the fact that like by 50, like our wisdom is so deep and so embodied and so rich that these people just become such role models just through their presence, because like their authenticity inspires others. And the sixes that I work with that are really aligned, like there's a gravity to their presence. Like, so I think it's been really helpful for me because I feel like in some ways people have always come to me for advice since I was young. And yet, like, I'm still learning, I'm 34. Like, I'm just like, I am immature in many ways. And like, I feel like there's something so exciting about like the continued ripening, the continued maturity, and like knowing that like life experience, like, I just like, it keeps getting deeper and that like, it's just gonna keep getting better.
Oh, the ripening, the ripening. I love
I
that so
know.
much. It's so good. And
Yeah.
you definitely have that gravity to your presence. Like you definitely have that aura about you and like that deep wisdom. It's already there. So
Right.
just like you said,
Just
like
gets
having
better.
that, it just gets better. Like a fine wine, baby.
That's what they always say with the 6'2's. Yeah.
6'2" is like fine wine. Okay, cool. I know we can't get into all of them, but
Yeah.
my question around this is So if you have a six or a two and you kind of, or a three or a five of the numbers we've gone over, and you already understand what those numbers mean, did they carry through to all profiles? So like if
Yeah.
someone is a 2-5 or a 1-5, or I don't know what the number is.
Correct. So
Oh,
those numbers will be, it's like the number that comes, every combination will be different in its own way, but both of those numbers will carry quality. So like if you're 3-6 or 6-3 or 4-6, that six piece is still applicable. If you're a 2-4 or 5-2 or 2-5, the two pieces is still there. So briefly, let's do the one and the four just because I don't want to leave them totally out.
okay.
The ones, so that will be 1-3s, 1-4s, 4-1s, and 5-1s. These people are very natural investigators. They've got to go deep. They've got to, Natalie has this, they've got to like really like, it's not enough to know like that something works. They have to understand why. You know what I mean? Like they've got to like go back and like look at all the details. And like these are people that are really meant to be like experts and authorities because they've gone so deep and their foundational knowledge is so strong.
Mm,
And so like it is so important to kind of take the time to kind of cultivate that depth and cultivate that expertise. And also you're going to want it in a relationship to kind of investigate, dive deep, build a really solid foundation. And then fours, Catherine's a four, Catherine's a 2-4, I believe. Fours are all about community. Like
mm,
their opportunities come from the people they know. They kind of bring this really warm, friendly energy. They kind of make people feel like friends. Like my clients that my human design students that do sessions that have fours, like you just like there's an intimacy they create, which is so beautiful. But I would say for fours, like your community is often the best place to start when you're launching something new. Like let your community know because they'll often be the people that are your first clients, your friends,
mm.
your former colleagues. You probably like might find that you don't love dating apps. You want to like date somebody that was a friend first or introduced you through a friend. So like your community is such a source of opportunity if you allow it to be.
Wow. So there's one, four, threes, fives, sixes, twos. No, there's
Correct.
all of them. One, two, one through six.
I
Wow.
love the order that you just did. I was just like, where is she going? So
The
there
math is
are
now mathing. I now get it.
there are
One through six.
1-6. There are six individual numbers that have characteristics, and they are put together in 12 different ways. That's not going to be
Got
every
it.
combination. Like there aren't 2 3s, there aren't 4 5s.
Okay.
There are 12 combinations, and each combination will be different because there's going to be a balance. Like if somebody's a 2-4, they're a hermit and desperately need community. So they've got to find that balance of like really knowing when to pull away and when to be with people. So there's so much additional meaning that's offered by the combination, but you get a lot of fundamental stuff by looking at those individual numbers.
That's so cool. Okay.
You're
I
laughing at
love that.
yourself, yeah.
We're gonna leave that in there because that is hilarious and so real.
I was just loving it. I was like, 1-4 threes. Okay, okay.
The math is mathing.
Yeah.
Okay. What would be your advice to people listening on how to best leverage their magnetism with human design? Obviously, it's like following it, but is there anything more that you have to say on enhancing your magnetism with your design?
Yeah, I think it is following it, but like I think if it was to be more specific, like for generators and manifesting generators, like you are the most magnetic to new opportunities and to new aligned opportunities, whether romantic or professional, when you are using your energy every day in ways that feel really satisfying. So,
Mm,
I've had clients that are like, oh God, I'm like not meeting anybody, or like the job opportunities are slow, but like I look to how they're using their energy and they're super frustrated and really not enjoying their day to day. And so like when you're kind of just like, I'm loving what I'm doing and I'm loving spending time with my son, all those things, like it just starts pulling things your way. So like when your satisfaction is a priority, that
hmm.
is when you're most magnetic.
Love that.
For projectors, when you're most magnetic is, I think when you really allow space and rest into your life and like you're sharing from a very inspired place and not like a obligatory one. Like when I'm just like, oh, I've got to be consistent and keep posting on Instagram, like not super magnetic, and I'm just like,
Right.
okay, that I'm not posting. And like I'm gonna have these moments, but then when the inspiration comes and the energy's there, I'm gonna really ride with it. People feel that. And so
Yes.
I still get trapped in that all the time, but like
Yeah.
it's fun for me to notice, like, oh, that's the difference. Is like when the energy's there, ride with it. When it's not
Yes.
there, give it a
Ride with
break.
it.
Right. Also ride with it. Exactly.
Right.
Do the thing, put the phone away, don't need to push in that moment. I would say manifestors are the most magnetic when they like are kind of embracing that they're like here to be super provocative and different. When they're just
Mm,
like, I'm gonna like say this new thing and just like do what I'm inspired by and like have a vision that no one else has had, like it kind of allows the right people to like jump on the train. It will also push people away that aren't for you, but it will kind of allow the right people in.
Love that.
I always remind manifestors, like, you cannot have the impact you're meant to when you're just like trying to fit in. That's just not your vibe. It's like allowing yourself to be really different, and knowing your visions are worth pursuing. And then I would say reflectors are most magnetic when they're in the right spaces, because when they're in the right spaces, like, it kind of pulls out the right parts of them and the most aligned parts of them and like the parts that they love. And that's when they kind of pull more opportunities their way.
This is so fucking amazing and fascinating.
I
Thank you so
know. Isn't it the biggest rabbit hole of all
It's
time?
it's
Yeah.
amazing, like truly amazing, so life-changing, so life-changing. Okay, so would love to know what makes Erin, well, a badass manifester.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, okay, I think that like I guess for me, when I like look back, because I think what human design has really reminded me of is that like I can have all these visions for my life, but often like what happens is way better than the visions I had.
Ooh.
It's like in the moments where it's like I'm just not trying to control it. And so when I think about my life, it's like I didn't know that human design would become a business or that it would like be our livelihood and like allow us to do all these things. But like in the moment it came, I just trusted it and I really committed to it, even when there was like no recognition from anyone else. And so
Mm,
like I feel like the badass manifestor piece has really come from just like trusting what feels right and like committing to it wholeheartedly, even when the recognition and the accolades and the things have not come immediately.
wow.
It's been very patient because, like, I mean, the first couple of years of human design, like, there was no recognition, and yet I was still like, I must do this. Like, there's something to share. So I feel like I've had a lot of faith, and like,
Yeah.
and there have been a lot of moments like making those 12,000 blueprints by hand. Like,
Yeah.
that was hard,
That
like
was
that was
hard.
like, a lot of my life, and like a lot of my weekends and a lot of my energy, and yet still I knew that like I was building towards a thing.
Mm.
And so I feel like for me, it's just been this kind of like endurance and dedication and like being able to kind of hold the long view and just trusting it's all happening.
I feel like it's devotion too for you.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So beautiful. And you're such a devoted mama
Oh,
and
I love it
really
so
just an
much.
inspiration of being able to have it all, right? Being able to hold so much for other people, help other people, and create this beautiful family. And I'm just so happy for you. I love watching your journey unfold. And it's just the beginning, which is crazy.
Right? I
It's
know.
right. Like you're the best is still yet to come.
I know. And we just like, again, we never know where it's going to take us. Like, I just like, I'm like, what's
Yeah.
happening? Like, even it's intuitive this week was like, yeah, when like your babies are like 2 and 3, it's going to be wild. I'm like, but what? You know what I mean? Like, you have no
Right.
idea. Like, I think that's the magic. It's just like, it's just going to keep changing.
If you could go back and tell Erin, who is like writing those blueprints, one thing from the future, what would you want to tell her?
Well, one, I think that like I think it might be useful to know like it will pay off, but I think I already knew that. I think that like I guess actually what I would tell her is like I feel like sometimes, and I don't know what your experience has been as a mother in this way, but like because I'm so prone to overdoing and overzealous, there have been moments where I just like haven't prioritized the right things in my life. And
Mhm.
I feel like having a daughter, like it's like it just became so clear that like my family, my like the three of us and our dogs and our horse, like are just like they're like the most important things above everything and anything. And so like even in writing this book, my book's due in 2 months, and like my time is so limited, and yet it's like the thing I will not sacrifice on is like time with my daughter and time with my husband. So like I feel like I actually would have looked back at that Erin and been like, it's okay to like put it aside. Like there are
Yeah.
just things that like I know that like it's gonna work out and you're gonna figure it out, but there are things that are actually so much more important than like getting these like 10 blueprints done today. And so
Mm.
like I feel like having a daughter really just like the priorities just like going boom. You know what I mean? I was like, oh my God. And so I think it would have been beneficial to know that even more then.
That's so powerful. I think
Yeah.
it's funny because when people think about having kids, as an entrepreneur, it like actually shrinks your like priorities can sound like almost like shrinkage in a way where you're like,
Yeah.
oh, I only have time to do this or that or that. But really it's such an expansion because you're able to like
Such an
live more.
expansion.
Yeah, you're able to live more and
And that
expand.
makes you more magnetic.
And that's what makes you magnetic. Boom. Perfect.
Yeah, I
Perfect.
know. It's
Yeah.
like yeah, it has expanded me in ways that I couldn't even imagine. I don't know what I will do with two though.
I'm so excited. It's gonna be the biggest expansion yet.
I hope
Wait,
so.
is there anything about having kids in the human design chart?
Well, I think that human design lets us know so much around how we parent best. Like for you as a
Okay.
generator, it's like you being lit up by what you're doing every day, whether it's like being full-time at home with your son or whether it's doing work, like is going to be the most beneficial to him. There's
Okay.
some weird stuff the founder used to say around like some types don't have as much energy for parenting, but honestly, I just like put that stuff aside because it's so ridiculous. Like I
Yeah.
think like my belief is that human design is not meant to tell us what we cannot do. It just lets us know how we can do that thing best. And so
Ooh.
it lets us know how we can use our type to parent in a way that's really good for us. For me as a projector, I ask for help all the time. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? I spend time alone. I'm like with my daughter, just being like, we're just gonna lay down. You know what I mean? Do your thing.
Right.
So I just feel like I've given myself a lot of permission to not always be active in a way that my husband, like, he's all like so active with her in a way that like, and my daughter knows it. She just like
Yeah.
chills with me all the time, you know? So
I know exactly what I want to title this episode, and it's going to be Permission to Be Yourself.
exactly. That's all human design offers.
I love you
That's
so
it.
much.
I
Thank
love
you
you.
so much for sharing your gifts with us, for
My
your
pleasure.
wisdom, your knowledge, all of your devotion and dedication to like really bringing this to the world. So if you are listening, go get your blueprint. Get your blueprint.
Yes. No,
It'll
seriously,
change
get
your
your
life.
blueprint. Yeah.
Seriously, like the best $95 you'll ever spend, and there'll be a discount, so you'll be good.
Yeah. Use the discount code Quantum.
Quantum. Okay. Where can everyone follow you on Instagram?
On Instagram, I'm at Erin Claire Jones and Human Design Blueprint. And then you can get the blueprint at humandesignblueprint.com/guide. I know that'll be in the show notes too.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone. Have an amazing rest of your day. Keep being the badass manifester of your life. Woo! We did some work today. Thank you so much for listening. You know I love my BAM fam. If this episode resonated with you, please share it with someone who you know would love it too, because we live for the ripple effect over here. And how can you best support the show? Make sure you're subscribed, hit the 5 stars, and leave a review on iTunes, and let me know how the podcast has impacted you. I love being part of your real-time journey, so screenshot the episode and tag me and my guests on Instagram at Manifest with Ash. Now say it with me. I am my own power source. I am the master of my own energy, and I deserve everything that I desire. We don't just talk about it over here, we be about it. Now go get 'em.